everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Politics for Beginners. This is episode 3, and we're going to talk about how elections actually work and why they feel so confusing sometimes, because they really do feel so confusing. If you're wondering, hey, why are you standing up? I feel like maybe if I'm standing up, I won't go over the 10 minutes. Maybe we'll just really get this done. So again, Politics for Beginners, episode 3, how elections work and why they feel so confusing. Ever wondered how someone can win an election without getting the most votes? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode, or why some people feel like their vote doesn't matter. This episode is going to explain that because elections in the U.S. aren't just one event. There's a multi-step process that shapes who gets power. There are 2 main stages of an election. There are the primaries, and then there are the general election. Primaries, where the real decisions start. Primaries are elections within each political party. So for example, in the Democratic Party, multiple candidates will compete to become the party's nominee. That's what it's called. So you may have 5 people running for the same position, whether it's mayor, governor, whatever. I'm just saying 5. It could be 3, it could be 10, it could be 2, right? But they'll be of the same party running in the primary against each other for the same job. The same thing within the Republican Party. Voters registered within those parties, or sometimes independents, depending on the state, vote to choose their preferred candidate. So you're not cross-voting unless you're an independent, depending on the state. So if you are a registered Democrat, your primary is with the Democrats. So the Democrats that are running, again, for example, for governor, if you have 5 of them, you're choosing within your party who you want to run in the general election, who you want your nominee to be. And the same if you are registered Republican, you're voting in that primary within your party who you want your Republican nominee to be. And that person, that Republican nominee, will run against the Democratic nominee. I hope that makes sense to you. And again, I'm standing because I'm trying to hurry up here. So the general election, that is when the nominees from both parties face off, right? That's what they do. Again, they're going to ask for donations. The Democratic nominee is going to tell you why they are the best person for the job party. But that's what you're going to be deciding based on what these 2 people are saying who are going to represent your state. So the general election it's kind of a big deal, right? Because now, the primary, the primary is kind of a big deal too, right? The primary comes before the general election, but in the primary, you actually need to pick someone you feel is also a strong candidate that will go against that person, the Republican person that comes out of the primaries, right? So a lot goes into thinking about who you're going to vote in the primary, because you do want that person to come out swinging in the general election. In many races, like for Congress or for governor, the candidate with the most votes wins. So like I said, it's a little different for the presidential election, but that should be straightforward. If you have any questions, you can always put them in the comments as well. But again, when it comes to the presidency, it's not quite as simple as the most votes win. But for everything else, your governor, your mayor, your Congress people, it's the most votes win. So that's why it's every vote counts. Every vote matters. You have some races, they're called races, where they're squeakers, right? Candidates winning by 200 votes. That's small. That's every vote matters. There have been some races where they've won with less than 50 votes. Different when we're talking about the president of the United States. That race is a little different. I mean, there's still primaries for the presidency, right? You can have like many people who want to run for president, like coming up in 2028. You're going to have several people on the Democratic side who want to run for president. And on the Republican side, you'll have several people trying to run for president on the Republican side. So presidential elections, are you ready, are decided by something called Electoral College. It's the most confusing thing on the planet. I don't know how many each states get, but there are some states that have a lot of electorals, and there are some states that may only have 2. So you may have some states that you may get like 10, 15 electoral votes from. And to win the presidency, you need 270 electoral votes. So say for Massachusetts, if you win Massachusetts, however many electorals that we have here, the person who won gets it. So, Republicans really want to win. Democrats really want to win, are the ones that they know are going to give high yielding electorals. So that's why it's not about how many votes you get them in the states that are going to give you 270. So if Massachusetts, you get 10. If Pennsylvania, you get 25. Like, you just want those states that are giving you those high electorals so you can get to 270 first, because whoever gets 270, that is the winner of the presidential race. My vote doesn't matter. They're often reacting to the system that can feel uneven at times, especially, like I said, with the Electoral College. And if it's like, well, if someone gets a majority of votes and they still lose, why am I voting for it? Like, so I guess that is the frustrating piece. But, we'll talk more about why every vote matters, why voting matters. And we did touch on it a little bit, right? Because outside of the presidential election, people who are running for Congress, your senators, it's the majority vote wins. So your vote really does matter. And remember, in these local elections, it's really important for you to vote because it's what happens in your backyard. Even if a system isn't perfectly balanced, even if the system feels like it's flawed, participation shapes the outcomes. Like, period. Just period. Elections are often decided by small margins, turnout differences, and who actually shows up. Right? So, in closing, I don't know how long this video is. So, in closing, when you look at elections as a whole, it's not just one vote on one day. It's a layered system. It starts with party decisions, it moves through voter participation, and it ends with rules that shape how votes are counted and translated into power. Easy breezy, right? So once you understand that, a lot of what feels confusing starts to make more sense. And as I do these videos, I'm like, is it getting more confusing or is it just me? Like, I hope it's becoming more clear for everyone. So next week, maybe we'll take a deeper dive into the Electoral College, because that is a bit confusing and I understand that. But other than that, again, we're going to try to get this video whittled down to like 10-15 minutes at most, and see you guys next week. Bye.